الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله يقول الله تعالى في كتابه المجيد بعد أن أقول أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين بالقسط شهداء لله ولو على أنفسكم أو الوالدين والأقربين إن يكن غنيا أو فقيرا فالله أولى بهما فلا تتبعوا الهوى أن تعدلوا وإن تلووا أو تعرضوا فإن الله كان بما تعملون خبيرا. وقال تعالى في مقام آخر يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين لله شهداء بالقسط ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم على ألا تعدلوا اعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. أما بعد. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has many beautiful names and attributes, and this past week we have had the blessing and the opportunity to discuss several of them. And we started and began the journey by talking about Allah's mercy, by talking about how Allah is Ar-Rahman, the most loving, the most compassionate, the most caring, the most extreme in His mercy. That mercy which envelops and encircles all of His creation, from all of the Muslims to all the ones who do not believe, from all of the human beings to the jinn, to all of the animals on the face of the earth. We talked about the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from His name Ar-Rahim, which is specific and which is exclusive for the believers. We spoke about Allah being Al-Wadud, the most loving, and Allah blessing us with His love and allowing us to love Him. So today I wanted to speak a little bit about one of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala which mirrors this, which is the opposite side of the coin, so to say, because sometimes we think that if we discuss the love of Allah and we discuss the mercy of Allah, then that gives me allowance to live my life however I like. And then Allah is loving and forgiving. Allah is merciful and He is kind. He is generous. I can do however, whatever, and whatever I like, and I'll just say, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim. But the mercy of Allah has a counterpart. And it is shown when we say in Surah Al-Fatiha, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin. That the mercy and the kindness and the love and the compassion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if it is shown on the day of judgment, then we will enter paradise. And if the person doesn't receive the mercy and the kindness and the compassion of Allah, the opposite to that is His justice. The justice of Allah. That Al-Adl, Al-Muqsit, the one who is fair, who is balanced, who is equitable, the one who can take us to account for everything that we did in this life. فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ شَرًّا يَرَهُ. That whoever has done anything, even an atom's weight of good, will see it, and whoever has done even an atom's weight of evil will see it. So, what is this quality of justice that we speak about? It is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most fair. That on the day of judgment, everyone will be taken to account for their good and their bad. And this quality of justice is something Allah loves to see in us as well, being fair and balanced. Allah loves to see in His creation that we are fair and balanced people. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, O you who believe, O believers, stand firm for justice as witnesses for Allah, even if it's against your own self. Even if it's against your own self, or your parents, or your close relatives. When it comes to being fair and just, what's the closest group of people that either the scale is tipped one way or the other? Either they're shown justice too much. Like, I have a business and I see there's so many people who are qualified for the job, but I have this cousin, he don't read good, but he's my cousin at the end of the day. So that nepotism seeps in, that nepotism seeps in, and then we basically just, become like every other politician. Or we are unjust. We show injustice to which group of people first? The people who are closest to us. The people who are in our house, in our home. Unfortunately, they get to see the ugliest side of us. And so Allah is reminding us that when it comes to being just, and when it comes to being adl, and when it comes to having this quality of qist, being balanced, start with those who are closest with you. And don't let your desires deviate you from this justice, because Allah is aware of what you do. This same ayah comes again in another part of the Quran, very similar ayah, very close in the wording. And this one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says the same thing. Stand firm for the justice for Allah and be true in your testimony. Don't let the hatred of other people, what other people think about you, lead you to injustice. i'dilu. Be just, be fair, no matter what. That is the closest thing to piety. Huwa aqrabu littaqwa. You know, when we talk about who is pious, who is righteous, that businessman who refuses to cheat, that's an example of piety and righteousness. That father and that mother who refuse to show, favoritism and just be extreme in taking one child and saying, oh, this child of mine, he is so amazing, he's so awesome, he's this and he's that, and this child of mine, he's just whatever. That's piety. And so when we look in our history at examples of this type of justice, one of the most notable people who exemplified this justice was none other than Umar radiallahu anhu, Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu. And now, mashallah, we have seer intensive going on, so I'm sure that many of the students, they experienced the beautiful conversion of Umar radiallahu anhu. But for this, I wanted to just touch on some of the highlights of the justice of Umar. What was the justice of Umar? What was Umar radiallahu anhu like as a ruler? You know, one of the easiest things in life is to be just when you have no power, really. When you're just, a 15-year-old, then it's easier to be just with your friends. It's easier to, not be unjust. But when you're in a position of authority, when you have power, when you're someone's boss, when you're someone's parent, when you're in charge of people, then it's easy to abuse it. That's why you hear stories of CEOs of companies just jumping in an elevator, telling their employee they're fired and then leaving as a joke. Because as a person in such high power, they feel like nothing can happen to them, so they don't have to worry about it. But Umar radiallahu anhu's quality was that he was complete opposite. For him, justice was extremely important. He established justice in all aspects of life in Medina. He set up an infrastructure that was never seen before, and he set up systems and paradigms that lasted for centuries after. But even in his personal dealings, we see that Umar radiallahu anhu was justice. One day, Umar radiallahu anhu, and this was his habit, he would go through the streets of Medina just to check on the situation of the people. He heard a baby crying. And he went to investigate, and he found the mother of the baby, and he told the mother, take care of your child is crying. A little while later, he heard that same baby crying again. And he found it was the same baby that he saw the first time. And again, he told his mother that, why aren't you taking care of your child? He even said, what kind of evil woman does that? She said to him, she didn't know it was Umar. She didn't know it was the Khalifa, the Amirul Mu'mineen. She said to him, there's Umar. He has this rule that he will not give a stipend to babies unless they're weaned off their milk. And so I'm forced to do this. I'm forced to try to wean this baby off of my milk so that I can get the stipend. I'm in a situation I need the money. Umar radiallahu anhu, immediately, even though he's the ruler of all the Muslims, immediately he changes. Immediately he takes that, and the next morning prays Salatul Fajr, and the Sahaba said that they could barely understand the qira'ah of Umar because he was crying so profusely. Immediately after, he says that Bu'sal li Umar, Umar is so horrible that he has instituted this law that has caused harm and has caused difficulty on these mothers. Immediately we will change it. So mothers, don't worry. Feed your children. Don't worry. Take care of your children. One day, he was always worried. Umar radiallahu anhu was always worried, am I just or not? He gathered Ka'b radiallahu anhu, Salman radiallahu anhu, Talha radiallahu anhu, Zubair radiallahu anhu. And he asked them. He said that, I'm going to ask you something personal. And I want you to be honest with me. Am I a just Khalifa? Or am I a tyrant? Am I a just Khalifa? Or am I a tyrant? Salman radiallahu anhu said that, by Allah, you are a just Khalifa. And you are following in the footsteps of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He still wasn't satisfied. Ka'b radiallahu anhu stood up and said, I second what he said. And you are a just Khalifa. Once, Umar radiallahu anhu was giving khutbah, much like I am right now. And imagine in our masajid, if someone is giving khutbah and one of the musallin, one of them stands up and just interrupts the khatib. Okay, don't even think about that. Just imagine someone's cell phone goes off in the khutbah. Everyone's eyes turn to that person. How evil, how horrible, what kind of person, wickedness, the ultimate. Salman radiallahu anhu gets up in the middle of the khutbah and he says, wait, I can't listen to what you have to say and take anything seriously because I have something that's bothering me in my heart. What's bothering Salman radiallahu anhu? He said that we came back from this expedition and there was this ghanima, there was the spoils of war that was distributed. One of the meanings of qist and muqsit is to distribute fairly. So this was distributed. Every one of us got one shawl, but I see you have two. Until you explain this, nothing you say will benefit me. Umar radiallahu anhu, what did he say? Take this man, have him whipped. What did he say? He said, Abdullah, his son, Abdullah bin Umar, radiallahu anhu, would you like to explain to Uncle Salman? So he says, Abdullah radiallahu anhu says that everyone was given one shawl, you're correct. But I gave my shawl to my father. And that's why he has two. Salman radiallahu anhu said, now I'm happy. Now you can continue. This was the justice of Umar. That even being the ruler of all the Muslims, he could have said, okay, you guys, you get one shawl, but I have more right, so I'll take more. He still took the same amount as everyone else. One day, Umar radiallahu anhu had a dispute with who? With Abbas radiallahu anhu, the uncle of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The dispute was a little bit sensitive. It was a little bit, concerning, because there was a house that Abbas radiallahu anhu had that was next to Masjid Nabawi. And Umar radiallahu anhu wanted that house as part of the extension of the masjid. So he approached Abbas radiallahu anhu in this aspect and in this regard. And he said to him, can you please sell me the house? Can you sell me this house? Abbas radiallahu anhu said, no, I'm good. I don't want to sell it to you. Who is he talking to? He's talking to the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ. In fact, in this same altercation, Abbas radiallahu anhu said, if the uncle of Musa alayhi salam was alive, would you have respected him? Umar radiallahu anhu said, of course I would have. He said that I'm the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ. He said, then I'm going to respect you. So how about instead of selling it, you give it as a gift. You gift it. And Abbas radiallahu anhu said, I refuse. I don't want to gift it either. So Umar radiallahu anhu said, you have one of these two choices. either you sell it or you gift it. There's no third choice. There's A, B, there's no C. He said, no, I'm not going to do any of those things. And you can't force me. Umar radiallahu anhu said, okay, how about we get someone in between to arbitrate? And they chose Ubay ibn Ka'b radiallahu anhu. Ubay ibn Ka'b radiallahu anhu looks at the whole situation. He investigates, he finds what one person said, the other person said. In the end, he tells Umar, O Amir al-Mu'mineen, with all due respect, Abbas radiallahu anhu is right. And you can't force him. You can't force him to sell, and you can't force him to give it to the Muslims as a gift. You have to let him be. Umar radiallahu anhu was a little bit curious. He said, where did you get this from? Could you just give me the dalil? Was it from the Quran? Was it from the Sunnah? Where is it from? So Ubay ibn Ka'b radiallahu anhu said that it was from the Sunnah. As Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that once the son of Dawood alayhi salam, Sulaiman alayhi salam, was trying to build Baytul Maqdis. And when he would build the walls, one morning, the next morning they would fall. They would be destroyed. until Allah told him that, O Sulaiman, you will not be able to build on here because this property belongs to someone else. And you can't take it without that person's permission. The story goes on, it's a very long story. Eventually, Sulaiman a.s. had to pay some thousands and thousands of gold coins to that person. And he, at one point, even said, you know what, I'm just going to take it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to him, if what you have is from your own self, then fine, you know. But if what you have is what I have given to you, then pay the man. Once, Umar radiallahu anhu, and again, this was his practice, he would walk through the marketplace, and I want you to imagine this, because this is the ruler of the Muslims, like the president, like the king, walking through the marketplace, walking through a mall. Like you're walking and you just see the president right in front of Five Below, and you're kind of like, what is the president doing here? This was Umar radiallahu anhu. Despite his power, he would just sleep under the tree on a rock. And so he's walking in the marketplace and he had a whip. And this whip was, most people feared it more than the swords of others. And there was a man, Iyas bin Salama, who was standing in the pathway. So Umar radiallahu anh just nudged him, just slightly just nudged him with the whip. He said, move out of the way. Like if any one of us has gone for Hajj or Umrah, those people who's like, Tariq ya Hajj, Tariq, get out of the way. And so Umar just nudged him and told him, get out of the way. 1 year later, Umar radiallahu anh found out that Iyas was going for Hajj. And he came to him with 600 dirham. And he told him that I heard you're going for Hajj. Please take this and use it for your trip. Please take this money and use it for your trip. Iyas said, Jazakallah, thank you so much. He said that, and also forgive me that 1 year ago you were walking and I nudged you with my whip. Please forgive me for that. He has said that if you hadn't reminded me, I wouldn't have remembered. I forgot about that. A year ago, I don't remember what happened, like a week ago. And Umar radiallahu anh said that you might have forgotten, but I haven't slept properly for the last year because of that. That was the justice, that was the high bar, the high standard that Umar radiallahu anh held himself to. We have to ask ourselves, how many times are we crossing that bound? How many times are we just exceeding and going over and being unjust when it comes to just our own families, just our own friends? Even if we just focus on these two categories, our friends and our families, and for those of us who have children, with our spouses. Once Umar radiallahu anhu wrote a letter to one of the prominent Sahaba. His name was Fayroz al-Daylami radiallahu anhu. And he asked him to come to Medina to meet Umar radiallahu anhu. Fayroz al-Daylami, he was a senior companion, and he arrived in Medina and went to meet Umar. He sought permission and he was given permission to come in. As he was walking in, a young Qurayshi, a youngster, he you know how when you're standing in line somewhere and someone just bumps you and then comes in front of you, cuts in front? This youngster just cuts in front of Fayroz al-Daylami, pushes him a little. Fayroz al-Daylami is not the Sahaba, the companions weren't these weaklings. They fought in battles where they were outnumbered 3-1, 5-1, 10-1. Fayroz al-Daylami, he's like, what are you doing? And he smacked the guy. This young guy, he smacked him. And he hit him so hard, he started bleeding. The youngster started bleeding from his face, and he goes in, and Umar sees that he's bleeding, and he asks, what happened? Who did that to you? Who hit you like this? The youngster said it was Fayroz. So Umar said, Fayroz? So he called Fayroz al-Daylami and he said, come here. He said, Fayroz, you did this? He said, yeah, I had a meeting with you. I was coming in and this guy just bumps and tries to cut in front of me. I had the meeting. I wrote you the letter. Who is this guy? And Umar said, yeah, but qisas. There has to be retribution now. Feroz ad-Daylami said that, really? It has to be? And so Umar radiallahu anhu said, yes. Justice is justice. Right is right. And so Feroz ad-Daylami, he knelt on his knees, and the youngster was given the whip to take retribution. And he's just about to hit the Sahabi when Umar says, wait, hold on just a second. Before you strike, I just want you to hear something. Something that the Prophet ﷺ said. There was a couple of days before the passing of the Prophet ﷺ, what was happening was a lot of people were claiming to be prophets. So there was a lot of false prophets. One of them was Aswad Anasi. So the Prophet ﷺ said, last night, the false prophet Aswad Anasi was killed. And it was the pious servant of Allah, Feroz ad-Daylami, who killed him. And so Umar says this to the youngster, and he says, now you can do whatever you want. Now I just wanted you to know that this guy, the Prophet ﷺ, praised him so much. After hearing this, the youngster said that, I forgave him. There's no way that I can hit him after you told me what you told me. So I forgive him. Feroz radiallahu anhu was so happy, but he just wanted to make sure. So he asked Umar radiallahu anhu, said that, I admitted my guilt, and he forgave me. Does that mean that Allah will forgive me? And so Umar radiallahu anhu says, yes, Allah will forgive you. So Feroz, out of his happiness and inspired, because Umar radiallahu anhu wasn't just and then in his personal dealings, that's all, but he was an inspiration of justice and piety to everyone around him. And that is how we will be. If we become people of justice, the people around us will feel it and they will be inspired. They will be just this feeling that I have to be better. I have to be more fair, more balanced, more equitable. Feroz ad-Daylami said, then I want you to be witness. I gift this youngster my sword, my horse, and 30,000 dirham. For his forgiving me, Allah will forgive me in the akhirah. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. يقول الله تعالى في كتابه المجيد بعد أن أقول أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. If me and you, if we want to be people of justice, then we have to ask the most just, al-adl, al-muqsit, for that quality. We have to do dua to Allah, and we have to reflect that we have to be fair and just in this world so that we are actually saved from the justice of Allah on the Day of Judgment, and we are given the mercy of Allah on that day. On that day, we are going to need Allah's mercy. We are going to need the compassion and the love and the care of Allah on that day. As the Prophet ﷺ was speaking with Aisha radiallahu anha, and he was teaching her a dua, Allahumma hasibni hisaban yasira, that, oh Allah, make my account easy on the Day of Judgment. Make my account easy on the Day of Judgment. And he said to her, oh Aisha, whoever's book of deeds is opened on the Day of Judgment, every single bad thing that they did is scrutinized, is looked at under a microscope, will be ruined. So I ask Allah to make us just in this life so that we earn the mercy of Allah in the next. I ask Allah to make us like Umar radiallahu anhu in his justice and his fairness. I ask Allah to make us just and fair with ourselves, with our parents, with our relatives, with our wives and husbands, with our children, with our friends, with our family, and with all of our Muslim brothers and sisters, as well as all of the people on the face of the earth. I ask Allah to make us lights of guidance for people. I ask Allah to alleviate oppression from the Palestinian people. I ask Allah to help them and to send His nusrah. I ask Allah to help all of the Muslims all over the world who are suffering. I ask Allah to make us of those who have concern for them and do dua for them on a regular basis. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. أقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح